All right, welcome back. Today, we're diving into something really fundamental. We're looking at the deliberate, step-by-step method that was used to build an entire civilization right from its earliest days in Makkah. And trust me, this isn't just a history lesson. It's a blueprint for change that's still so relevant today.
So, let's kick things off with a big picture question. Do you think history is just one random thing after another, a series of chaotic events, or does it actually follow a specific set of rules?
And that question brings us to our first major principle. This idea that there are unchanging laws that govern how nations work. How they rise, how they fall, and the divine order that's behind it all.
This quote really captures it perfectly. The ways in which nations are established, prosper, and grow, and eventually collapse, these are all governed by universal laws. So right away, this tells us that success and failure, well, they aren't just a matter of luck.
Here's the crucial takeaway. Success isn't just some random thing that happens. It actually requires you to understand and act according to these fixed, divine laws, laws that apply to all people at all times. And when we look at the life of the prophet, what we see is the perfect example of someone who didn't just understand these laws, but masterfully applied them.
Now this brings up a really key distinction. The prophet's success wasn't just built on miracles. And you might wonder, why not? Well, think about it. If success was only based on miracles, future generations might just sit back and wait for some kind of magical intervention. But the blueprint shows something different. It shows that real, lasting achievement comes from taking the necessary practical steps. It's a model that empowers every generation to get up and strive.
Okay, so let's move on to our next section and see how this all connects. This is all about the wisdom of gradual progress. Of building a foundation that's actually designed to last.
You see, the mission wasn't just one big bang event. No, it unfolded in three very distinct phases. First, there was this intense period of training for a core group of believers. Then came step 2, openly confronting falsehood and facing the enemies of Islam. And finally, after all that, came the third phase of achieving stability and establishing the community. It's pretty obvious this could not have happened all in one go.
And to really let this idea sink in, consider this incredible, profound question. Why would Allah create the heavens and the earth in 6 days when He could have just said, "Be," and it would have been there in an instant? The answer to that question reveals this deep, divine wisdom that's woven into the very fabric of creation, the wisdom of gradual, methodical progress.
And the lesson for us here is, it's huge. Lasting change in a society doesn't happen because of some top-down order or some overnight revolution. It comes from the slow, patient work of first preparing and changing how individuals think. It's basically a warning against that modern obsession we have with wanting instant results.
This leads us right to the absolute core of the Makkan blueprint. This is the pivot point for everything else we're going to talk about, the powerful idea that all real change begins within.
So let me ask you, where does a movement for true, lasting, meaningful change in a society actually have to begin? Just take a second and think about that before we reveal the answer.
And here it is, one of the most powerful verses in the entire Qur'an on this subject. Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves. This isn't just a nice spiritual saying. It's being presented here as a universal law of social change.
And this is exactly where the prophet focused his energy in those early days. The very first change he worked on was inside the souls of human beings. The source material beautifully calls it the making of great men. Before any state or any society could ever be built, the builders themselves had to be remade from the inside out. So what did this inner change actually consist of? Well, it was all about correcting the very foundation of belief, what we call Aqeedah, and bringing it back to its absolute purest form.
You have to understand, at that time, the concept of God had become seriously distorted. People were saying Allah had partners or even children. They were denying His perfection, suggesting He had needs or flaws, and even making other beings, like the unseen jinn, partners in worship alongside Him. It was a mess.
The solution, the absolute cornerstone of the entire mission, was Tawheed, the simple but profound belief that Allah is one, with no partners. And to make it crystal clear, this was explained in 3 distinct categories to systematically undo all those old twisted ideas. So let's break this down into its 3 core parts because this is so important. First, you have Rububiyyah. This is the belief that Allah is the one and only creator, the one who sustains everything and the master of the entire universe. Simple enough.
Second, we have uluhiyya, which means that because he's the only creator, he alone is worthy of all our worship, our prayers, and our devotion. And finally, there's asma wa sifat. This is the belief that Allah has the most beautiful names and the most perfect attributes, completely free from any flaw. You see how these three pillars together systematically corrected the entire foundation of belief.
Okay, so now that this incredibly solid foundation was laid, we can start to see that the structure being built was never intended for just one city or one tribe. From the very beginning, it was designed with a universal vision.
And the proof is right there in the recurring themes of the early Makkan verses. They confirm again and again that this message wasn't just for a specific group of people. It was explicitly for all of mankind, and even the world of the jinn. And because the scope was so universal, it was inevitable that the message would eventually have to be declared publicly. I mean, it doesn't get any clearer than this verse right here from the Qur'an. Say, O Muhammad, O mankind, verily I am sent to you all as the messenger of Allah. There's absolutely no ambiguity. The mission was global from its very inception.
So, as we wrap things up, let's reflect on this final question. If you think of a civilization as a big structure, what's the most critical element? Is it the blueprint, those divine laws we talked about? Is it the foundation, that correct, solid belief? Or is it the builders themselves, the individuals, who have been transformed from the inside? I think what the Makkan model shows us is that you absolutely cannot have one without the others. They're all connected.